Perfect parries don't make sense in a turn-based RPG if you ask me, but you know where they do make sense? In a one-on-one fighting game, oddly enough. Welcome to Ye Olde Entertainment, my name is Alex and today we're going quite a bit outside our wheelhouse to talk about 2 strikes and 3 balls. Cause that's how you're going to feel in this intense one-on-one fighting game in which you kill or get killed with 1 or 2 strikes. This game is a sequel to, yep, you guessed it, 1 Strike. Tired of that Asian 12-year-old boy kicking your ass left, right and center in online fighting games or in any game for that matter? Well, get ready to put those days behind you with 2 Strikes, because single-player modes are plentiful and fun to play, casual interest in the game is not only not punished but encouraged, and online competitive bouts don't have to be a complete evisceration of your reputation, mental health, and controller. I've always been a fan of games that narrow down the scope to a minimum viable product and make that one thing work, and 2 Strikes is the perfect example of this. In this one-on-one fighting game, there are no special moves, no combos, no airstrikes, no holds or throws, no juggling, no supers. It's just a hectic, intense kill or be killed experience that I can best sum up like this. That's right. Next. Ooh. Yeah, that's right. Get the fuck out. Next. Oh no, not this bitch. And you know what? I'll take it. Interestingly enough, you still have to consider the type of fighter that you're most comfortable with, as it happens in other games of the genre. There aren't of course grapplers in this game, but you do have a cast of sonar, rushdown, bait and punish, and hit and run characters to choose from. And they do feel different to play, which is quite remarkable if you consider how narrow the scope of the game is. You have 2 or 3 different types of strikes depending on the character. You can block, dash forward, dash back, cancel out of some of your moves, feign, which is very important in online matches, and some characters can combine these moves in interesting ways. There's not much else going on, but you still get a strong sense of playstyle from these guys and gals. Mio quickly became my favorite because she's quick on her feet, and her strong attack can elude incoming attack and punish the enemy in one swift move. Some of her shortcomings can easily be taken advantage of by human players on the know, but that's a different story. Then you have Ai, who specializes in getting close as quickly as possible to deliver that strike, and Hosoin, who is all about punishing enemies from a distance. There are also significant differences when it comes to parry, perfect parry, and recovery times. So if you're not getting the timing of that parry right, especially for online matches, you might want to go online and scope that info out. The fights themselves can be pretty intense and pretty freaking cool, especially when there's a lot of blocking and clashing before the final blow happens, and when they don't get resolved within the first 10 seconds. Also, pulling a perfect parry and delivering a fatal counterattack feels super satisfying to do in this game. And there are very cool animations and sound effects to go with it. So the single player offline gameplay experience is pretty rewarding, at least for a while. We'll talk about that while later though. Online versus gameplay is a whole different beast, of course, as is usually the case in the genre. The game has a pretty tight community who organize tourneys and take themselves seriously enough to have season championships and player rankings, but not seriously enough to be gatekeepy and asshole-ish. I think it was smart of Retro Reactor to throw in several different single-player game modes, because that's how you make the most out of the offline single-player gameplay in this title. Each of these modes requires you to play the game in a different way. The One Life mode gives you one all-or-nothing chance to defeat your enemy and move on to the next fight, while the arcade mode is a succession of best out of 5 duels, and you can't configure it to be a best out of 7, 9, 11, or 15. Then you have the One Strike Nostalgia mode, in which you win or lose with just 1 strike. And believe it or not, this changes the way you play the game quite a bit. Playing as Mio, for example, it's super easy to get 1 hit on Tomoe, but getting 2 hits can be a little bit trickier. So this particular matchup is easier in the One Strike Nostalgia mode, but other characters might have a bit of trouble trying to parry Agi's, Goemon's, or Hosoin's quick strike depending on their parry windows. You can't usually get away with taking that hit and still win the fight in other game modes, but in the One Strike mode, if this happens, it's game over. Then you have the Team Duel mode, which works a little bit like Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I like that there are easier and harder matchups for every character in 2 Strikes. This makes paired combat interesting because you don't want to pair up 2 characters that struggle with the same opponents. The Story mode uses a roguelike story progression. Before every duel, you get a little story snippet for that character, and by completing a run in the Story mode, you get to see a part of that character's story. If you play the Story mode again with the same character, you get a new story snippet with every match, which is very interesting, but there is one huge caveat that we are going to talk about later. Speaking of story though, completing a run in any single player mode in any difficulty level unlocks a bit of lore for the character that you used. Every character has a different number of lore bits. Hosoin, for example, has 12, while Mio has 7, so you need to play many more times with the old booger to complete his story. You can check out every character's story in his or her own lore tab. And I think this is worth doing because characters are actually interesting in this game. You might have noticed that I didn't stamp a "You Old Gamer Recommends" seal of approval on this one at the beginning of the video. And that's because I'm not sure I'd recommend this game to those of you who watch my videos regularly. I think your mileage will vary greatly depending on how much you care about fighting against other people online, and about how appealing it is to you to be a part of a game's community. If the idea of being part of an active community of players who like to engage in casual online gameplay from time to time, or if you are serious enough about getting good to the point that you want to participate in tournaments, then this game is absolutely a no-brainer, and it's some of the best value for the price that you'll find anywhere, and definitely deserving of a "You Old Gamer Recommend" seal of approval. But if you are an old fart like me who prefers an offline single-player experience who has not touched a fighting game in ages, or if you're looking for a palate cleanser to take a break from that 100-hour plus RPG that's taking you months to complete, I'm not sure this game would be my top recommendation, because 2 Strikes is not without some pretty big caveats. If you go for the 100% offline single-player experience, you'll likely spend the first couple of hours trying out the different characters to see which one suits you better and getting a grasp on how the game works. You'll likely wrestle with the timing of the parries, the distance of the attacks, and you're likely going to go back to the practice mode every now and then to figure out how to beat that enemy that's making your life miserable. And once you've chosen your 2 or 3 favorite characters, you'll likely try out every game mode until you've beaten all of them. And that'll take you roughly somewhere around 10 hours. But then you're probably going to want to increase the difficulty, which supposedly makes enemy AI harder, because you got good and now it's time to test your mettle. Well, if your experience is anything like mine, 2 things will happen. 1, you'll see that the game is insanely unbalanced. And I'm not the kind of guy who complains about this. I think it's good when you get fucked by enemies that are anti-your class or anti-your build in games. I don't think it's good design when every enemy in the game is equally hard or equally easy to defeat for every class and build. And this is something that you have to expect in fighting games. They are supposed to be a complex game of rock, paper, scissors after all. But 2 Strikes is just the most extreme version of this that I have ever seen in my life, period. I admit I'm not much of a rushdown kind of guy. I never play these characters in fighting games, and Senyan is one of said characters in 2 Strikes. And I had an insanely difficult time against AI-controlled Goemon in this game. Even if you pull off that one thing that works consistently, the one thing that works consistently is still way more elaborate and trickier than it is with any other character. Of course, I might be playing the character wrong for that matchup, but that was also true of many other characters, because I'm no Justin Wong or J.M. Crofts. But after a few minutes of trial and error, I was able to get to that
I get it.
and beat every pesky little AI-controlled booger that was giving me trouble, including Goemon, of course. But with Senyan, it took me several dozen attempts to wrap my head around how it was done, and even then I couldn't pull it off consistently. The second thing that you'll notice is that, aside from Seiyan and his matchup against Goemon, not much changes when you increase the AI difficulty, even in the highest difficulty level. Once you figure out how to defeat every character, you can't consistently beat the game in any single player mode. Within the span of an afternoon, I managed to beat every game mode in the ultimate difficulty and earn all those achievements with my favorite characters. I even beat the Team Duel mode with 2 characters that I had only used once or twice before my first attempt. So much for Ultimate. Then you have the DLC characters. I think a lot more work went into the promotion of the damn things than into the characters themselves. Once you install these DLCs, you can play as these characters in every game mode except the story mode, of course, and you also get to face them as opponents. Each of them has his own background and his own music track. You have Baki Hanma and Musashi Miyamoto from the anime series Baki Hanma, or Ogre-san depending on where you watched it. Baki is the only decent DLC character in my opinion. He has a unique playstyle that feels different from every other character in the game, and his music track is actually pretty good. But the other two are completely fucking broken. And I'm not talking in the sense of them being OP, although they are that too. I'm talking about them surely not working as intended. In 23 hours of playing the game, and after playing every game mode in every difficulty level, I never lost a single duel to Musashi as an enemy. I even thought he was included as some sort of meme character like Dan in the Street Fighter series, but nope. This guy is supposed to be a badass. It's even funny that he gets mentioned in a couple of achievements. Untouched under the sun 50 kills, you bested 50 straight. An astounding achievement, Musashi did double, can you? That guy? Are you shitting me? And this might be a little bit superficial of me, but I don't think his character model and his animations look all that cool. And his character specific location is probably the most uninspired in the game. Then you have Shinigami, the soul-eating demon. This character is the final boss in every game mode. You can also play as him, but I personally didn't ever choose him because he didn't look appealing to me and because I was able to defeat him 95% of the times I faced him. He would always fall for a carefully calculated distance strike, and unlike other characters in the game, he would never counterattack after a successful parry. But then out of curiosity, I decided to give him a spin. I thought I was being suicidal playing the game in the highest difficulty level for the first run with Shinigami. And guess what? I managed to finish the one-strike mode and the arcade mode in my first try, and I killed 79 enemies in a row in the infinite mode in the first attempt. And all I had to do was press one button and stay away from a couple of attacks. That was it. And I think this is laughable. Why doesn't he ever do this when he's the enemy? He does have by far the coolest looking character model, I'll give it that. Then you have the story mode. This is my least favorite mode. In fact, the only achievements that I didn't bother farming were the ones that had to do with the true endings for each character. First, the story feels like walking into the cinema after you miss the first 50 minutes of the film. But after you play through the story mode with all the characters, you start getting an idea about what's going on. If you bother going to the game's multiple lore tabs and actually read all those lore bits that you have unlocked, then you get a bit of a better picture of the whole story. And some of it is actually interesting, including a palatable representation of a certain former foreign slave turned samurai called Yasuke. But the game expects you to pay attention to non-voiced unskippable dialogue sequences, and to go to the lore tab and read a lot to piece together the story. And I think this is just too much to ask of me in a fighting game. I think there were better ways to convey this information in a less intrusive way, and I think it would have been worth doing it. Because like I said, the story is not bad at all. If you do take the time to visit those lore tabs, chances are you won't be disappointed. Also, the fights are supposed to be a part of a tournament, but you have to figure that out from the lore bits and the dialogue. The game doesn't have an intro, and there's nothing about the locations in which the fights take place that makes the fights feel like part of a tournament. Even the OG Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat had little details that made it clear that you were participating in a competition. But the biggest problem with the story mode is that you are required to finish it with all the characters to unlock the next piece of the story for each individual character. You can't just pick the one you like and play 3 times in a row to see all of his or her story and unlock his or her true ending achievement. After you finish the story for the first time, this character becomes unselectable, and I hated this. Those, in my book, are the worst things about Two Strikes, but then there are a few other issues that make this otherwise very nice looking and very nice sounding game feel unpolished. So first, in the team duel mode, there is no way for you to get the right portraits for your team. The game always changes one of the portraits to the wrong character. The only exception are the DLC characters. The game has been around for a while now, and it's not a good look that the devs have not fixed this issue yet. Second, it might have been a stylistic choice, but these buttons look suspiciously like upscaled PNG files. Same thing goes with some of the text. And some things, like the text box during the dialogue moments in the story mode and your record board in the infinite mode, don't quite look like they belong in the game. Other considerations and final thoughts. If you are looking for a game that's easy to learn, fun to play, and that brings about an interesting twist to one of the longest standing formulas in the world of games, I think Two Strikes is a decent choice, even if you are looking for a single player offline experience. I admit I probably wouldn't have gone out of my way to pick this one. I was given codes for the base game and the DLCs, and I was asked to give it a spin. And give it a spin I did. And I can't say that it kept me thoroughly entertained for 4 gaming days, which in my case is like 12 hours, give or take. I decided to farm it a little more, and I think that it can be milked for a few more hours. I had fun, but I think that if you're not into the autistic achievement farming experience, the game might start to wear a little bit thin after 16 or 17 hours as an offline single-player experience. All of this, of course, goes out the window if you are looking for an online experience. I think this game is a blast to play with others thanks to its community. But you need to be part of the community. You need to go to the game's Discord, and you'd do well to check out their website. I'm not a big online player, but online gameplay is not as seamless in this game as it is in Gwent or Street Fighter 6. Two Strikes currently goes for $3.99 on Steam in my region with a 50% discount, and for that price, I think it's one hell of a deal. The DLCs go for $2, but Baki Hanma is the only one worth getting in my opinion. If you want to simply burn through the game and unlock all those non-story achievements, you may also want to get the Shinigami one, because he's ridiculously OP. But that's it, that's all I have for you today. Coming up next is the video about my very favorite games of the last year. If you like this one, however, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs up. If you like what you are seeing on this channel, please consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell to avoid the usual YouTube shenanigans. Come check us out on Discord if you don't mind all the boomer talk that goes on there. I personally love it and wouldn't change it for anything. And share the video if you thought it was cool. Bye everyone.
You're excused. You can go back to playing video games.